This program is brought to you by Real Estimate, Australia's #1 property value estimate. Get your real estimate today on realestate.com.au.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at last week's auction results. Nationally, there were 1,694 auctions held with a national clearance rate of 61.6%. In Sydney, there were 618 auctions with a clearance rate of 60.8%. Moving to Melbourne, there were 649 auctions with a clearance rate of 66.1%. Brisbane had 72 auctions and the clearance rate was 54.2%. In Adelaide, there were 64 auctions with a strong clearance rate there of 82.8%. Finally, in Canberra, there were 50 auctions held. The clearance rate was 60%. Well, joining me now is Paul Ryan from REA Group. Paul, at least in Sydney, the weather was pretty awful on Saturday, but it doesn't look like it really deterred buyers too much. Clearance rates in Sydney still holding up reasonably well. Yeah, that's been the story for the past couple of months now. Pretty strong auction clearance rates into really robust auction numbers. It's been unseasonably strong. We normally see a bit of a tailing off in activity in May, and then June and July are some of the weakest months for auction activity throughout the year. And we're coming into late May now. We've got another 2,800 auctions scheduled this weekend. When looking over through the next few weeks, obviously there's the June long weekend holiday coming up. Is that when you think things might quieten off? Because I know people expected things to quieten off a lot sooner. Yeah, generally we look kind of at Easter mark. A lot of people bring transactions before Easter and then there's a bit of a slowdown. We haven't seen that. Maybe it'll be the June long weekend that'll see a slowdown before things heat up again for spring. We may just not see that mid-year slowdown, hopefully. Now, are there any regions that are doing better than others? Price-wise, we're seeing flat prices in some regions, places like Hobart, places like Melbourne, places like Canberra. Melbourne and Canberra have done a better job on housing supply, and that's one of the things that's restraining prices. In the middle, we've got Sydney, where prices are growing about 7% a year, and then you've got the smaller capitals that are just running rampant still. Adelaide, Brisbane, Perth, prices are growing astronomically. Demand, particularly in Perth, what we're hearing is that any property that's listed is taken off the market almost immediately. Yeah, Perth's an interesting one because we obviously don't really get auctions in Perth. It's more private sales, private treaty. But the numbers, I think more than 600 over the previous week, like pretty high. Yeah, and we saw that throughout the pandemic cycle. Brisbane, for example, generally not an auction location throughout the pandemic, saw a lot of auctions, and now it's kind of slowed down a bit. It gives you an idea of demand. When demand is really hot, people know that auctions are a good way for everyone to show up and give their best price. So the fact that we're seeing a lot more auctions in Perth is one of the many indicators that are showing how hot the market is there. And then the outlook for interest rates, it looks like now with all the economic data we've received that the next movement by the RBA is probably going to be down. Do you think that's giving people confidence to keep going to auctions and turning up on the weekend? I think so. It has been a roller coaster for interest rate expectations over the past couple of months. Bounced around a lot. Yes. I think the thing that's buoyed the market this year has been certainty that there aren't going to be another interest rate hike, and that's not a certainty. There still may be another interest rate hike, but most expectations are that the next movement will be down, which gives people a bit more confidence to use to bid up to their borrowing capacity, or be a bit more aggressive, and I think that's helping. Looking at the housing market itself, we know it's still really tight, but last week it seems like there was a little bit of relief for renters with vacancy rates easing off very slightly. Yeah, we're still seeing vacancy rates well below pre-pandemic levels and kind of around 1% in every market. So it's really difficult for renters to find accommodation everywhere, but we have seen that start to ease over the past couple of months. And hopefully that's not just kind of a mid-year easing in rental demand, and this signals that the rental crisis is going to see a kind of a long-term easing. There was a speech actually from the RBA Assistant Governor Sarah Hunter last week talking about the housing challenge, and I think she made a real point saying this is a multifaceted thing and it's going to be a very complicated problem to solve. I mean, how do we get through this situation with a serious undersupply of housing across Australia? Yeah, it's a tough one. I think RBA made the point that higher interest rates aren't, the main reason why rents are increasing, but they are constraining construction activity. It's one of the things that increases costs for developers. It changes when development happens, not the total amount of development. So at the moment, we've got this situation where prices are rising, rents are rising, development really isn't coming on
stream fast enough, and that tells you that these really tough conditions for renters and home buyers are going to continue for some time.
And in the budget, we did see a couple of things to try and address skills shortages in the construction sector to try and get them back on track. I think fee-free TAFE places, 20,000 of those, plus the government's fast-tracking some almost 2,000 skilled visas to bring more people to the country to help build. Do you think that's going to make a bit of a difference to get things going again?
A bit of a difference, and all this is welcome. The government has targeted those things that have been constraints to the construction sector, and skills have been a big one. So I think anything we can do to get more skills on the ground that will both lower costs and make it faster to build things will be welcomed. The other thing is infrastructure. So the government kind of tripled their spend towards state governments to unlock housing. So things like roads, sewers, things like that. Anything that can be done to unlock more housing sooner is going to make a difference. But unfortunately, these things all take time.
Paul Ryan from REA Group, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.